Welcome into the CHGO White Sox podcast, coming to you live from Studio A of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago.
Applause.
In front of a live studio audience. This is the CHGO White Sox podcast. That's Vinnie Duber, our CHGO White Sox beat writer. Man in the middle is Herb Lawrence.
Hello.
Our CHGO White Sox community leader. I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me at Sean_W_Anderson. Thank you to Tony Gill, our live audience today, and Kevin Wells, our producer. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button and you're subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. Just had a very cool show happen on CHGO Sports. Carm, Nick, Adam, live from London.
Wow. They're
in like a conference room, and you could just tell that Stephen Nicholas is ready to, pop. Greg Braggs is weirdly watching from behind the camera. It was a great show.
Is it like the middle of the night over there?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like 2 a.m. And
it's
here
like,
they
wow.
are.
No, it's not. It's not that late.
Okay.
It's
So
only
it's
like 6 hours, I believe.
So it's 10?
Right now it's 10. It's comfortably 10 o'clock.
Okay. I don't know.
It's dark. It was dark there.
It was dark there.
Eating beans on toast.
Yeah, and Greg Braggs got a round of bourbon for everybody, apparently. Came back and got a round of bourbon for everybody. And
they went to a different country to get bourbon? Bourbon's from Kentucky.
Literally what I was going to say. I'm like, oh, in England,
they should
bourbon?
be drinking room temperature beers.
Maybe it's whiskey. I don't know. But
that's still Ireland.
Yeah.
I need to go across
next door.
Yeah. I heard they don't like each other too tough.
Well, I mean, if you look at Ireland, you could see one giant part of Ireland being owned by England.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's part of the reason why at least one of those islands doesn't like the other island.
Yeah,
I think the other island really doesn't care.
Let's just scrap all this stuff. Let's get into some geopolitical talk about it.
Hey, how important is it to own the channel between Ireland and the UK? Let's get into it. Herb, your thoughts?
Let's get your thoughts. 282-6767. Sorry.
Don't call that number.
Is it a channel or a sea?
I thought it was a channel.
The English channel's on the other side.
The English channel is between England and France.
You can swim that.
I guess it's the sea. It's where the Isle of Man is.
Oh, the Isle of Man.
It's the Irish Sea.
There you go.
I didn't know that's where Isle of Man was.
They got a lot of seas over there. In Europe.
Yeah. It's also right by the Firth of Clyde.
There you go.
Yeah, old Clyde with his Firth. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about Fernando Tatis Jr. and the ones that have gotten away for the Chicago White Sox, mainly because in the past 2 games, the Padres have won 2 games against the Los Angeles Dodgers, and Fernando Tatis Jr. looks fantastic doing it. 3 homers in the past 2 games. You're wearing the hat.
Mm-hmm.
How's it been watching Fernando Tatis Jr.?
Man, it's always awesome to watch the guy. He is a superstar, and I think most people forgot about him because this year he was hurt both at the beginning and like in the middle of the chunk of the season where it was. You see the highlights of the Padres. You see Jackson Merrill. You see Manny Machado. You see their pitching staff, but you didn't see a lot of Fernando Tatis. And I think this postseason, he's reintroducing himself to the national audience. And you could see 0-2 pitch versus Walker Buehler. Doesn't matter. Rocketed. And that place was up for grabs. Loud as hell.
Remember when he was a shortstop?
I do.
Yes.
And now he's the best defensive right fielder in baseball? That's wild. That's wild to me.
And it's just athleticism.
I mean, all of those guys, like Jackson Merrill was a shortstop. So was Bogarts. Then they moved him to second. Then they moved him back because Kim was hurt. Cronenworth was a shortstop. Machado was a shortstop. I'm sure Arias wasn't because he's a terrible fielder, except for he's been gloving it at first. But hey, just draft
a shortstop too.
Yeah, just draft a bunch of shortstops.
He's the shortstop.
Yes.
And he was just
he's
hurt.
their shortstop.
Yeah. And Bogarts is because Bogarts is a butcher at short, but he's been playing well enough at shortstop this year where he can be passable.
So, it's a pretty good idea to just draft shortstops.
A bunch of them. And just move them around. Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea, with Tim coming up, was he going to play shortstop? Was he going to play center field? Ended up working out at shortstop, but, I mean, probably could have put him in center. He'd be all right.
Yeah.
I'm played second base at the World Baseball Classic.
Alexi Ramirez started his White Sox career as a center fielder.
Did he really?
Yeah.
On opening day, I believe. Yeah.
His first game was center fielder. Yeah.
I want to go watch that game now and see Alice in center. All right. But yeah, Tatis, let's go back and revisit that trade. I did find this very amusing. Rick Morrissey, back on June 5th, 2016, White Sox make the right move by acquiring James Shields. Obviously, in hindsight, it wasn't the right move, but you still seem like a fairly staunch defender that, it wasn't the wrong move at the time.
It wasn't.
In context.
In context, it wasn't. Fernando Tatis was the player traded to he wasn't even the headliner of that trade going back to San Diego. That was, as Herb reminded me earlier today, Eric Johnson. But Fernando Tatis Jr. was known, if he was known by any White Sox fans, because of his name. He was Fernando Tatis' son, Mr. 2 Grand Slams in 1 inning, Fernando Tatis. And the idea that the White Sox were making some horrendous trade at the time because they got rid of a teenager who had never even played pro ball in the United States for them is just silly. Nobody knew that he was going to be this guy other than somebody who trusts in DNA and the idea that Fernando Tatis had some good baseball playing DNA in him and was able to pass it down to his son. But the White Sox were attempting to remain in that playoff race. If you remember, at the end of May, I believe, at the end of the second month of that season in 2016, the 2 best records in both the National League and the American League were held by 2 teams from Chicago. Maybe not the end of May, but in May at some point. And that didn't work out for the White Sox. The Cubs obviously went on to win the World Series that year, but it didn't work out well for the White Sox. They were slipping at the moment. They needed some oomph, and I don't think that anybody would look at James Shields that year and say that was the guy to stick at the top of your rotation, but they went out and got a proven successful major league pitcher, a guy who had pitched in the playoffs however many years prior to that. So
the Orioles well too.
Yeah. So it wasn't a horrendous move at the time. It only became that because James Shields performed very poorly in a White Sox uniform, though he was for some time the most recent White Sox to throw 200 innings in a season before Dylan Cease and Giolito came along, I believe. But and then obviously Tatis became Tatis, and is Tatis still currently a guy that you would build your franchise around, that sort of a player. And when things went the way they went for the White Sox after several years of rebuilding, everyone looked up and said, boy, it sure would be nice to have Fernando Tatis Jr. on the south side to be able to build around. And that is not the case. Obviously makes it, in hindsight, what White Sox Tom describes it as perhaps one of the worst trades in history, just because the way it played out, not necessarily because the way it was made at the time.
Yeah, and I was out there working the San Diego radio board when they made that trade, and I was elated for the White Sox. I was like, firstly, I was like, addition by subtraction, because Eric Johnson is terrible. And then I was like, while James Shields is bad and not good, just gave up 10 runs to the Mariners, I'm like, that will help the White Sox out a little bit. And I'm like, literally, I'm looking back at my tweets. I did not mention Fernando Tatis in any of the tweets that I sent out. Not one. And I'm looking at these, I'm like, okay, I guess that he is not good at all. Like, literally on May 30th, 2016, I said, future White Sox pitcher, hopefully, James Shields will be on the bump tomorrow versus the Mariners live on Mighty 1090 at 12:40 Pacific. That's the game that he gave up 10 runs, and then the owner at the time, Ron Fowler, pretty much cussed him out and said that he sucked. And then the White Sox traded from like a week later. So I was fine with the trade, and I will never, in hindsight, poo-poo Rick or Kenny for that trade, because I judge trades mostly at the time that they were done, not the results of it. And also, Fernando Tatis would not be Fernando Tatis with the White Sox. The development wasn't there. I mean, he got some help with the ringworm treatments, and so I think that it was the best for him to be out there in San Diego and do his thing, which he has. And he's been a champion of that Padres, and that excitement you see last night is partly because of him. It's partly because of Manny Machado, Peter Seidler, etc. But I don't think he is this guy, as we saw with his brother, Elijah, pretty much fizzled out after 2-3 years. I mean, he's the same. He's his brother's. I mean, he's his son's or dad's son still. You would think that he would have the same pedigree as Fernando, but no, he was not the same player as his brother, Fernando Tatis Jr.
I mean, maybe not the same drive. We also saw, Jeffrey and who's the other Jordan?
Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus. I mean, they didn't even make it to the league. Brownie really only made it to the league because of his dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know if we could bank it all on genetics. Seems though like Tatis had that willpower, that drive, a little bit of ringworm, and it's turned into a real productive career. Now talking about looking through Herb Lawrence's old tweets. On June 19th, 2016, you tweeted, "I hate Juan Uribe at 1:30." Were you bored?
What did I say?
I hate Juan Uribe at 1:30.
That's
June 19th, 2016.
Let's see, 2016. I was in San Diego, so I was going to blame it on the score because we used to do a thing where if you left your Twitter open on this and the computers in the score studio, people would use that and send some opposition stuff for the stuff that you would never say. I would never hate Juan Uribe. Why would I hate Juan Uribe? Maybe he was a Dodger at the time and he hit a home run off the White Sox or something like that, and it was probably tongue-in-cheek. I would never hate Juan Uribe.
I don't know. It's what you said, so I just have to believe it. And going back to your point, Vinny, May 13th, 2016, Sox were 24-12, one game in front of the Baltimore Orioles. Cubs were 26-8, 4.5 games up on the Nationals. And then by May 14th, Sox were tied for first in the AL. And then by the 15th, Boston was even a part of that party. And then I think by the 16th, the White Sox fell out of the top of the AL. So not so great. Rick Morrissey did, though, defend it by saying he can't hit. He doesn't come out of the bullpen, but that misses the point. If he pitches the way he normally does, which he didn't, a man that is as consistent as a watch's second hand, he gives the bullpen much-needed rest, and he gives the Sox the chance to win more games, regardless of whether their offensive struggles continue. Chris Sale, the ace of the Sox staff, understand what it means to get a pitcher who throws 200-plus innings in each of the previous 9 seasons. You have a lot of respect from yada, yada, yada. How does this then turn into the ace of the White Sox staff getting traded at the end of the offseason? How do you lead to, in May, being first?
Sean, how much time you got?
Oh, we have 45 minutes, I think.
Well, probably 3 in this segment, though.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is the year where everything went as wrong as it could have possibly gone for those White Sox. I mean, I was about to bring up as well. I mean, you think about kind of, and we're going to get into this in the next segment, kind of the MO of the White Sox front office for a while was, who cares what's in the farm system? Trade it for proven major league talent now. Look that the veterans that were on that team in 2016. It was James Shields, a brief appearance by Jimmy Rollins, Adam LaRoche, and all of the everything that went along with that part of that team, as well as some of the other guys who were still there from being on the White Sox for a while. So the year prior, right, it was the big acquisitions of Melky Cabrera and David Robertson and Jeff Samardzija. Those teams were all about getting guys who had proven themselves in the major leagues, and it didn't work.
Nope.
But getting James Shields for a teenager very much in line with that move, and then it was very clear after many years of it not working, and it came to a head mostly maybe because of that trade and it going so poorly with James Shields specifically, but everything that happened from there on out, that Rick Hahn gave his mired in mediocrity speech, and the rebuild was launched right there at the end of the 2016 season.
Still mired.
Yeah, I don't even know if Rick was trying, I think most of those moves up until the point where Rick said mired in mediocrity were like Kenny-focused moves, as you were saying, like we're piecemealing. Like we're just trying to get ahead of this, even though we can't spend money. We're just trying to get these players on the team to compete for the division. And then Rick is, in his wisdom, which was smart, convinced both Jerry and Kenny, like, this ain't working. Like we keep on spinning our wheels. Like we haven't been in the playoffs since 2008. We need to actually do a rebuild, and I applauded Rick for doing that and seeing that the pickups of James Shields, etc., are going to be continuing down this path of just being second, third, fourth in the AL Central. And he said, let's have some sustained success, and send this thing down to the studs and then build it back up. It didn't work, but I will never blame Rick Hahn for the actual idea. It was a move that was full go. It was not a half measure, which they had been doing up until that point. Well, pretty much all of Kenny's career as a general manager. And finally, Rick said, that's enough, man. We're just going to be this team forever if we keep on doing this Kenny Williams type of dealing and finding players. And so I applaud him for doing that. And I will never blame him for trading Fernando Tatis Jr., even though it turned out poorly.
Yeah, Rick Morrissey saying, did the Sox give up too much by sending highly regarded prospect Fernando Tatis to the Padres? Perhaps, but this trade is about making sure that they remain contenders this season. And it's just funny because they did not remain contenders.
No, they did not
at all. Just completely,
And partly because
out.
James Shields was bad.
Hey, they made their team worse in both parts of that trade.
Yes.
They tanked him by getting a 34-year-old washed-up pitcher and then trading superstar Fernando Tatis. I think our guy, White Sox Tom, said, worst White Sox trade ever. I feel like we should just go fully into this and then pretend to be MINN from 1992 or like 1995 and still like be bemoaning the Herschel Walker trade. Like, I feel like we need to like do some role play, like a little skit, let's take ourselves back to 1995. Anyways, let's take a break. We're going to let you know about our friends over at Prize Picks. It's the best place to get real money on sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less than on at least 2 players for a shot to win up 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So if your lineups, if anyone in your lineup gets hurt, your lineup stays in place, even if one of the players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live, and it's the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. And Prize Picks also invented the flex play, which means you could still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, or even if one of your picks doesn't hit, you could still cash out. So go check out our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CHGO to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's code CHGO to get $50 off after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We also want to let you know about our friends over at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Our pals are here to elevate your fall. It's your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from, with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Wherever you are in Illinois, Sunnyside has a location for you. They have spots as far south as Champaign, as far north as South Beloit. If you're in Chicago, you can go as west as, where does Lawrence live?
Elmwood Park.
Elmwood Park. You can go as east as Lakeview. It doesn't really get more east than that.
You'd be in the water.
You'd be in the water, and you can't set up a dispensary there. Head over to Sunnyside. You can visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. So who owns Lake Michigan? Like,
what do you mean, who owns
well, like,
it?
if you were going to go build a dispensary out on Lake Michigan, would that be an Illinois dispensary? Is that international waters?
No, it's not.
Well, it's not international. It's
Split
part of the
between
United
the states.
States.
It's the only Great Lake that is not part of Canada.
Yeah.
So
It's split between Michigan, Wisconsin, and Illinois. Yeah.
so
In
so where-
Indiana.
So
And
I mean, it's
Indiana.
just somewhere in the middle. It just cuts off.
I mean,
It's
Yeah,
no
there's
longer-
I
like
think Michigan
lines.
has the most shoreline of it.
yeah, most shoreline. But I'm saying, like, how far east can we go?
I think if you
just
go
brought
on
up how
Google, I think if you go on
east.
Google Maps, there's like a dotted line in like the
Yeah.
very
Middle,
middle.
yeah.
I don't know if that's correct, but I do find that interesting.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
I mean, it says that we could probably go. I mean,
Halfway, I would imagine.
well, I mean, it's even east of Gary. I think this. If I'm reading this correctly, I think we can go east of Gary. Probably as east as Burns Harbor, Indiana.
Wow.
I know. It's just got to stay as north. Anyways,
Good luck getting one of those set up in Indiana, though.
I don't know. It'd be a great view. I mean, they're
Oh,
talking
no,
about
they-
building that
they
Bears
just don't
stadium
like
on the
any-
lake. What about just having a dispensary in the lake?
They don't like any fun in
Yeah,
Indiana.
they don't.
Smoking, cool. Marijuana,
Nah.
we're good.
Can you gamble there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
Okay. Yeah, well,
You can gamble Illinois people.
No pot, though. Can't do it.
no, God forbid. Okay.
Damn Puritans.
Any other things on Tatis? Any other parts that we didn't miss? Because I think also the idea that the White Sox would have just ruined him is a little unfair to the player. I mean, Fernando Tatis Jr. after a suspension is coming back as this fantastic player. Like, I mean, he
It's
immediately
just people being upset because all the prospects they had
I mean,
didn't turn out.
he said it.
Just think about.
Yeah, but he's a people.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I'm speaking directly to him.
Tell me a position player that they've developed and that player has sustained his success.
Right, but is it the player's fault? Like, I mean, Tim Anderson was an all-star, and he was fantastic.
And then
They
he
didn't
fell off the
develop
table.
huh?
And then he fell off the table. I mean, you could put that put that one in your column
for a large part. I mean, he was a part of a wild card winning team. He was a part of a 93 winning.
Got 2 All-Stars. Okay, you put that on the left side. That's a win for the White Sox. Who else?
I guess.
I mean, theoretically, you could put Jose Abreu, but he just signed pretty much from Cuba and played baseball immediately.
Frank Thomas.
Frank.
He was good.
But I mean,
Robin Ventura.
Do you think that he learned so much from the Padres organization? Like, or is he in the level of a Frank Thomas? Because at this, I know not yet, but I mean, still, I mean, this has been a player each and every season that has just been the top of the league.
Yeah, and they do different things too. I remember when he got called up, the atmosphere in San Diego is different than it is in Chicago. Like, they have, Manny Machado going to the table for him to start the year on the Major League squad. They did the same thing for Jackson Merrill this year. I think how they treat players and how the leagues are in there. I mean, you get to play in the PCL, which boosts your confidence because if you're an offensive player, you're going to be hitting a bunch of home runs in the PCL, either in El Paso, where they are, the Chihuahuas, or you're in the Dodger system. So I think he wouldn't have been this player because of, firstly, the White Sox system, and then all the stuff that I said before, the steroids, how the Padres develop their players. AJ Preller has a system down there, and I think that it's working, as you can see. And when he doesn't get the players developed, he goes out and trades for them. As you can see, the trade moves they made, mostly for the bullpen, working out for the team.
Yeah,
I just think they know baseball. Yeah, and especially prospects. Like C.J. Abrams is an awesome prospect, and I know all the garbage that's faced him this last year, but he's an awesome prospect. Same thing with Mackenzie Gore. They were not slow to trade him when they got a chance to get Juan Soto. That's what they do. They pounce on players, and they make players good. Well, make them better than they should have been, I think. I think they developed him better than the White Sox would have developed him.
I still think he would have been all right. I mean, maybe they would have had to move him to a corner at some point, like the Padres did. But I mean, still, I think he would have been all right with the Sox.
Think about how long we recognized that Tim wasn't a good fielding shortstop, pretty much from the beginning of his career until the end.
He got better in the middle.
Better in the middle, but at the end, he turned back to Tim, who couldn't field. Was there ever a time where we like Tim needs to be moved off shortstop and he will be moved to center field, right field, left field, or anything like that? There was never any conversations like that real in White Sox circles. Like, Fernando Tatis was an all-star when they told him, even though he was suspended time, when they told him, hey, man, can you move to the outfield? We got some players coming. Xander Bogaerts coming. Can you move your ass to right field? And he went, and he was a platinum glove, gold glover. And would that same thing happen for the White Sox? I don't think so.
In what way, though? Like, I mean, they wouldn't.
Like, I don't know if they would approach it.
The reason they moved him off, though, was because they spent all that money. So the White Sox aren't going to spend money like the Padres. That's the real thing there. I mean, like, if they had the talent, maybe we'll see what happens with Brian Ramos and Miguel Vargas and Colson Montgomery.
But also, like, do you think, like, if we had an all-star shortstop, do you think, like Tim Anderson, do you think if we said, hey, Tim, can you move to right field? Do you think that would even be broached? And secondly, do you think Tim would be so receptive to it?
I think it's an individual, it's a case-by-case basis, I think. You know what I mean? Like, maybe the Padres said, wow, we really think Fernando Tatis Jr. would be good in right field. Did the White Sox think Tim Anderson would be good at a different position?
Yeah. I mean,
right? I mean, you just brought up the difference in that Tatis was excellent defensive shortstop and that TA
was not. No, Tatis was a bad shortstop. He was bad too. He made a lot
upon the change of position. He has been playing great defensive in the outfield.
Yes.
Who knows if Tim would have done that? But also, the White Sox didn't need to do that. They didn't have any shortstop coming up.
Well, and then here, hypothetically, White Sox go sign Willie Adames. Obviously, not going to happen.
Nope.
Like, you don't think Colson Montgomery would be like, great, I'll go learn to play right field or third base or whatever.
Right, and Colson Montgomery hasn't been in the majors yet, so he's going to do anything to get to the majors. Right?
Yeah, that's a different thing. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. It's all case by case.
But if Colson in the next couple years hits the way we think he can hit in the majors, and then still is a butcher at shortstop, I would want somebody to say, "Hey, man, your bat plays. We're going to be in the lineup, but you can't play shortstop for us anymore.
I mean, they might make that. I don't even think it's out of the realm of possibility where, his bat's ready and his fielding's not, and they just,
he never plays shortstop.
He never plays shortstop. I mean, he might not be a shortstop next year. We don't know. I think they're just looking for him to hit like he is at the AFL and be like, all right, great.
Right.
Let's just, as long as he's hitting.
They also have nobody to put at shortstop right now. True. So why not see what he can do?
Seriously. All right, let's get into some of the other guys that got away. Let's start this off with Sammy Sosa. Is this
He's
the
one who got away? Absolutely.
I don't understand the Sammy Sosa deal. It seems very similar to the James Shields deal. You're trading for 33-year-old George Bell. Sosa wasn't good with the White Sox, to be fair. 92 OPS plus, 59 OPS plus in his 2 seasons, 269 games, 222 batting average, 267 on base percentage, 379 slugging. Sounds like a 2024 White Sox.
Yeah. That was before, and he was very skinny, too, as a White Sox. It was weird.
Is there anything that you saw in his workout routine that led him to grow as big as he did?
Just Flintstone vitamins. That's it. That's all he did, of course.
I can still taste Flintstone vitamins, can't you?
Delicious.
They have a very specific taste. Yeah,
they're the best. So what happened with Sosa? Like, is that a mistake there, trading a 22-year-old?
No, it wasn't. Like, we know why Sammy Sosa had success. He did the needle, and he had great success with the Cubs, and that's why as a White Sox fan, we saw him being the White Sox Sammy Sosa, the Panther at the time. He was skinny, stealing bases, and it was no great shakes that he got traded. Everybody's like, great, we get George Bell. We remember George Bell from his Toronto days, like MVP George Bell. Baby, even though that was years past, we're going to get that guy. And he really wasn't that great for the White Sox. I thought the White Sox were trying to build on their great 1990 year and get somebody good like George Bell, and they fell short, and he wasn't as good. And rest in peace to George Bell. He died. I think he got shot at a gas station that he owned.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, Sammy Sosa took steroids, and that's undoubtedly what he did to get better. Now, you need to be able to put bat to ball still, but that was not, I will not give shit to either, I think it was Larry Himes, something not supposed to say that word, Larry Himes or Ron Schuler, whoever traded him at the time, because that was artificial. That wasn't a thing.
Who are you thinking of?
George Bell.
George Bell is alive. George Bell is 64 years old.
Sure?
And you have, yes. You have killed George Bell.
Maybe Ivan Calderon.
Yes, Ivan Calderon has passed.
That's maybe the guy who died.
Did
I kill George Bell?
You killed George Bell.
You killed him.
Rest in peace, George Bell. I said you're dead, so you probably
got to have him
dead
on the show now to talk about it.
Yeah,
Right.
Calderon was shot multiple times in Puerto Rico. His murder remains unsolved. Hey, do you guys want to solve a murder?
This was very depressing.
I didn't mean for it to be, but Herb's out here killing George Bell.
I'm sorry. But yeah, his last game was 33, George Bell. He's 33 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Well, yeah, and like,
Just younger than me.
Younger than you. Did you see Diane Vicieto at age 35 is looking for a new contract in KBO? He's going to be 36 in March.
He plays in Japan, I thought.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
He did. He killed.
Yeah.
In Japan.
My bad. Wrong league. But yeah, I mean, 36 years old. Take a shot at Diane Vicieto.
I'd rather have 38-year-old Jose Abreu.
It seems like a
64-year-old George Bell who's alive.
Sorry, George Bell's family. I'm glad you're alive.
mercy.
I was just thinking about Dominican players with Jerry curls that wear chains, and I got Ivan Calderon with George Bell mixed up.
I mean, looking back, that was the guy that got me into baseball. That was the whole reason why I was a Cubs fan, was Sosa.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been different, like a huge difference for the Sox at that point, but also, like, does he get to that point? Does he, have his struggles with the Cubs even? His first season with the Cubs, 67 games, 98 OPS plus. Then even the next year, 112 OPS plus. His first year having an OPS plus above 100. But, like, does he even get to the point where he is taking those Flintstone vitamins?
No.
I feel like he had to even go through struggles to even get to that point.
And I think also, if you don't trade Sammy Sosa, you don't get Bo Jackson here the year after that for a right fielder. So you don't get that big time home run that he hit in the clinching game, him throwing out a runner from right field. Like, you don't get all the stuff that Bo Jackson brought to the table, and he still lives in the Chicagoland area because of, getting traded here to the White Sox after his hip was misplaced in the football game. So I think it worked out well for the White Sox. They went on to win that 93 division, and Sammy Sosa maybe would have taken steroids with the White Sox, and they would have gave him a shot, and he would have been the 60 home run guy for the White Sox. But I wouldn't want that, because we were just talking about like what other steroid guys for the White Sox in their history. Like, the only guy I can think of like positively was Jim Parquet, and he was terrible.
Dude, it didn't even work out.
Butter.
Why even take that? What do Scott Merkin and Bo Jackson have in common?
They both went to Michigan.
No.
Okay.
That's not correct.
All right.
Yeah, Bo Jackson went to Auburn.
Yeah,
Yes.
he did.
Yeah.
They've both been to Guaranteed Rate Field.
They've both been to the 78. Did you see Merck standing at home plate today?
Yes.
Okay.
Bo Jackson was the
he was part of the boat tour.
Okay.
All right.
The initial guy.
Yeah. All right. So Sosa's one that got away. I put down Goose Gossage because they trade him away when he was 25. After he throws 200 innings, I don't know what takes place here. We're trying to acquire James Shields because he throws 200 innings. Oh, we got to break. My bad. Let's break, and then we'll get into Goose Gossage.
Yep.
My bad.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. A couple weekends ago, me and my fiance went to the Back to the Future, the musical, and this past weekend we just went to Anderson .Paak. Both great. Both times we bought our tickets on Game Time because we know we're going to get the lowest price guarantee with a Game Time guarantee, which states that if you find a lower price in your section and row, then Game Time will send you 110% of the difference, just like I got in Atlanta a couple years ago. Other things I like about Game Time is they're all-in pricing. Toggling this feature will show you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, and also you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know what you're going to be watching when you're at the event. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time. Who?
My wife is a big fan of fall, and when I tried to argue with her that it was still summer because of what the weather is, she was like, no, it's fall. You're wrong. And I was outside earlier today, and I think it's summer. And also, that means you can still go get a summer shandy. Leinenkugels makes the most delicious tasting beer for all of your summertime activities, whether you're walking down by the lake, whether you're tailgating at any number of sporting events. Nothing goes better than that taste combination of lemonade and beer, the summer shandy. It's so good. But say you are a fall person, you do want to celebrate fall. Well, Leinie's got you covered there too. Their Oktoberfest is out right now. You can go grab that. You want even more variety. They got a honey vice. They got a berry vice. They got a sunset wheat. They got a lakeside cherry. Go up to Wisconsin, get yourself a Leinie's original. It's all so tasty. Beers for all seasons, as you might say. So go ahead and flavor life's simple moments with Leinenkugels. It's the official craft beer of the Chicago White Sox. Go to Leinie.com/CHGO to find delivery options near you. That's LEINIE.com/CHGO. Let's try that again. LEINIE.com/CHGO, or pick up Leinenkugels pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Leinenkugels, flavor the moment. Celebrate responsibly. The Jacob Leinenkugel Brewing Company, Chippewa Falls.
Yes. I brought up Goose Gossage. Didn't seem like it was a big, guy that got away. They did trade him when he was 24 in 1967, coming off a season of 224 innings pitched and 394. Obviously, made more of his greater shakes as a reliever. But, still as a 23-year-old, he finished 6th in Cy Young voting.
It's pretty good.
And they're moving on from him.
Pretty good.
So, I don't know. I don't think any of us were alive to even see Goose Gossage's White Sox career.
That is correct.
But,
No.
Herb's
Cup career.
See, Herb, I hate to burst your balloon because Herb has jumped in the chat. We've got our guy Dan, who's always in here, brings up the thing we were talking about earlier. Who else on the White Sox was a steroid user? And Dan brings up Melky Cabrera, who was suspended for steroids prior to coming to the White Sox. Herb says we're talking about when they were White Sox. Herb, Does the name Wellington Castillo ring any bells for you?
Oh, not Welly. Not my guy Welly.
Very
WC.
nice. I think this is a podcast episode. We have to go back and see how many players for the White Sox had a steroid suspension.
Well, Wellington Castillo.
Well,
Yes.
Wellington Castillo is. This is the start of something great. Wellington Castillo is the start of.
This might be the episode right here. You can just clip this out and move it in.
Well, now I got to
Wellington
figure out
Castillo.
more people to name. Just Jim Parquet. We have to now figure out who's in the middle between Wellington Castillo and Jim Parquet.
It wouldn't be a lot because testing is relatively new.
Yeah.
It's only about 20 years old, if that.
Every now and then you'll get a very low-level minor leaguer will be involved in that kind of thing. And a lot of teams obviously have, it seems like there's a small handful of guys that have get suspended in the minor leagues every year. I don't believe the White Sox are immune to that since it's began, but I don't know and don't have the specifics in front of me. But I believe Wellington Castillo is the only big leaguer who has had that happen to them while they've been playing for the White Sox.
I think technically the Game 4 starter for the 9 Mets, Jose Quintana, was suspended as a minor leaguer. Yeah, but not as a White Sox minor leaguer. I think he was either a Met or Yankee minor leaguer.
There's a list here of on Wikipedia players suspended for performance enhancing and drugs. There was Christian Edwards, a minor leaguer this year, that got suspended for 80 games. I don't see any
A White Sox minor leaguer.
a White
Yes.
Sox minor leaguer. I don't see any besides Wellington Castillo on this list. Gregory Santos.
Groot.
That was when he was a Giant,
All right, that's fine.
and Hector Santiago.
Yeah,
that was
he was.
Oh
when
yeah,
he was a Mariner.
Well, no, he was the first player
With the sticky
suspended
stuff.
for breaking the sticky
At-
stuff rules. Yeah.
versus the White Sox, right? Or with the White Sox?
Well, it was against them that he got ejected. Yes. Yeah.
Was Tim Beckham a White Sox?
Yeah, for briefly.
Right? Yeah.
He was
okay.
Charlotte Knight, I believe,
Yeah.
after his days as a
So
Ray and Oriole, I believe.
That was a weird thing. Like Tim Beckham was picked in the same draft as Gordon Beckham, and I was like, why don't we have that better one? And Gordon actually turned out to be the better player.
So I think Castillo, Frankie Montas, Tim Beckham, Gregory Santos, Hector Santiago, and Fernando Tatis Jr. Those are the all White Sox adjacent that have been suspended for steroids.
I mean, if you're talking about people who got away, you just said Frankie Montas.
Yes. No, way to lead the conversation.
Yeah.
Do we want to just get into the A's part, or do we want to go to Carlos Lee first?
There's a whole special segment of this list that is they went to the A's.
At least
got good.
we're going timeline wise. We'll go to Carlos Lee first. He went to Milwaukee first, right? And then
Yeah.
he went to Houston. Why did Carlos Lee get away? Is this even getting away when you trade a guy and then win the World Series the next year?
That's the thing. People will say the trade was worth it because you got Luis Vizcaíno, relief pitcher, and Scott Podsednik.
And it was.
It was because those two people were very instrumental into the 2005 team winning this World Series. But if you put that trade in a vacuum and just look at 25, 26-year-old Carlos Lee for a guy who stole 70 bases and a relief pitcher who was mediocre, that trade would get panned today. And then you see the rest of Carlos Lee's career with the Brewers, with the Houston Astros, a brief stint with the Marlins and the Texas Rangers. Man, that guy had a pretty damn decent-ass career after his White Sox thing. I think, and I've heard stories, that he was just a selfish player, that Ozzie didn't want on the team anymore after he didn't take out a second baseman on the Twins when he had a chance to. He was more of a selfish player, a me guy. My stats are good. You guys, lost the game, but I went 3 for 4 type of guy. And so that's why they got rid of him. And they've actually improved their team with Scott Podsednik having a great year in 2005 and then Luis Vizcaíno doing his thing. That bullpen was pretty sharp. So technically it worked out. But I think if you look at it in hindsight, they probably could have still won the World Series with Carlos Lee. I think in 2004, if they don't lose Maglio Ordonez and Frank Thomas, they could have competed for the 2004 World Series.
Carlos Lee was really good. I would argue that he was one that got away, but that does have to come with the vacuum, right? Because if we're saying, was it a good trade or not? Well, of course it was a good trade. They won the World Series. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking about the players who got away, who would have been nice to have in a lineup moving forward, that's a guy who was very productive throughout the remainder of his career.
But am I wrong to say that he was just replaced by Jermaine Dye?
I mean,
Well,
different positions, but yeah.
But like, isn't that the idea? Was that you reconfigure that entire outfield?
But they got away. He got away.
That's true, but
technically,
we're,
Jermaine
They
Hold
weren't
plays
worse
for
off.
Ordonez.
They weren't necessarily worse off without him, but he was a
I guess, but
multi-time
we're like-
All-Star after he left the team.
the first 15 minutes of this podcast were kind of us defending the James Shields trade in the context. So in the context,
but
like,
nobody's arguing that Fernando Tatis Jr. wasn't one who got away.
I guess, but I guess one that got away means like, oh, your hopes and futures were dashed in a way. Like, they made the right move.
I think
there was nothing about the 2004 offseason that I would go back and redo.
I think the move is highlighted by the results. I think the process of trading a young left fielder who hits like Carlos Lee did is really flawed. Like, of course, every White Sox fan is like, that was a great trade in hindsight. I don't think if we had this show in 2004, we would be yelling about Carlos Lee leaving the White Sox. What did he do in 2004? Like, he had a pretty substantial year in 2004, and we in 2024 would be like, man, that's a pretty solid-ass player, and we gave up for a guy who steals 70 bases. And
it's a lot of bases.
It is,
yeah.
But I don't think Scott Podsednik was like a transformational player, even though he was very good for the White Sox.
El Caballo hit 305, was on base 366, and slugging percentage of 525.
How old was he?
A 127 OPS plus for the 28-year-old.
28 at the time?
Yeah, 28.
Okay, he was a little older than I thought. But yeah.
I mean, and then Pods, I mean, the year before, 244, 313, 364, ended up improving that to 290, 351. So, I mean, the average wasn't, well, no, Carlos Lee was, 305? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, 15 points worse. On-base percentage was close-ish, 366, 351, and 05 for Pods compared to Lee, and then 349 slugging, but, 59 stolen bases.
Mm-hmm.
Hitting at the top of the lineup, too?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Good,
I mean,
good trade. Carlos Lee remained a very good player.
Yes.
Both of those things are true.
I'm just wondering, like, how does the 05 lineup look with Carlos Lee? Is there a configuration? Awesome. It does look awesome. Yeah, it's
just man. I mean, I think Carlos Lee would have to be switched to right field so you don't get Jermaine Dye ultimately. But yeah,
Jermaine Dye was really good.
He was really good.
Jermaine Dye is probably one of the most underrated White Sox ever.
He was World Series MVP, right?
Yeah,
that is correct.
Yeah,
and
Silver win Game 4 without a single trickling up
Silver
the
Slugger in 2006. Awesome year that year.
And I mean, one of the
46 home runs, I think.
I know we talk about improbabilities with Fernando Tatis hitting a grand slam in the same inning off the same pitcher, 2 grand slams off the same pitcher in the same inning. But having a guy hit his 300th home run only to be followed up with a back-to-back homer of a guy hitting his 300th home run, probability. I mean, that's insane. All right, so Carlos Lee, he's on the list. Chris Young, outfielder. Never played with the major league team, was traded in the Javi Vasquez trade. You're bemoaning Javi Vasquez.
I never really liked him before the trade. And as a White Sox, like, you see Yu Darvish having like 8 pitches, and that's cool because he mixes them in. Javi had 5, and you could see sometimes his fastball was on, his curveball was on, but he'd be mixing in 5 pitches too much, and he was just a nibbler. I didn't like the trade, and then Chris Young went on to great success in his career. We're talking about the outfielder, not the general manager of the Texas Ranger. And he was just a solid player throughout his career. I would have loved him instead of Javi Vasquez, especially in the 2008 playoffs. Javi Vasquez kind of wet the bed versus the Tampa Bay Rays in that last game in Tampa. Well, not in Tampa, in the first game versus Tampa, where I think Dwayne Wise hit a couple home runs, and we had a lead, and then Javi's like, here you go, Tampa. Here's the lead right back to you.
Chris Young was good. He definitely counts as one who's got away. And I think now we go into from, kind of the individual here and there to what became a trend, which was what I was talking about earlier, right? Which was the idea that those Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn-led teams would often take prospects, whether they were that highly regarded, league-wide or just the top of the White Sox system, and send him off for a proven guy.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Chris Young going out the door, a guy who could be part of your team for many, many years, for Javi Vasquez, with the idea of, hey, that's a proven major league starter. We know what he can do. Bring him in here and hope that he can replicate the success he's had in the past. And as we continue to go down this list, you're going to hear a lot of guys who were traded in similar situations.
So Herb didn't like Javi Vasquez.
Nope.
I always thought Javi Vasquez was sick growing up. Maybe that's just because I grew up in a world where Rick Morrissey's writing that, James Shields is going to give you 200 innings, and that's important.
James Shields did give them 200 innings.
That's true. It didn't lead to anything, but Javi Vasquez gave them 3 separate seasons of 200 innings pitched, 202, 216, and 208. Chris Young, in his 6 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in Arizona, was worth 14.3 WAR. Javi Vasquez, in his 3 years with the Sox, 12.1. Am I missing something? It feels like the right trade.
No, I mean, WAR wasn't really a big thing, but Javi Vasquez wet himself a lot when it was the tough times were there.
What was the nickname?
Sweaty.
What was the nickname?
No, it's Sweaty Freddy.
I don't know.
Half game Javi.
There it is.
All right. So we'll move on after that.
There was a reputation.
No, it was his nickname. You threw out Aaron Rowan earlier. I think this is also one that I would kind of debate. Our guy Jim Cook, sales guy, threw this out to me, I think, like a week ago.
Yeah.
That was the wrong move. They should have never traded Aaron Rowan. They should have kept Frank Thomas.
They got Jim Thome.
That's what I tried telling Jim. And then I showed him all the stats that said Jim Thome was better in the 2 years after Frank left in 06 and 07, but he still wouldn't listen to it.
Yeah, I was probably putting him just in there just to have conversation. But, yeah, I looked at the stats, and getting gentleman Jim Thome on your team, no matter what he's doing, even if he was the shell of himself, like he was with the Twins or the end of his career, the White Sox years were great. And the fact that they didn't win really anything doesn't matter. I think Jim Thome as a White Sox is well worth Aaron Rowan's end of his career. So I don't think he got away, even though I love Aaron Rowan. And that catch in Philadelphia still is one of the best catches I've ever seen, where he broke his nose.
Jim Thome was very good with the Twins. Go look that up.
I
He hit that home run off on Matt Thornton, too.
Jim Thome had a
Walk-off.
182 OPS plus in 2010, 108 games, and he finished 18th at MVP.
He was incredible with the Twins.
627 slugging percentage that year. Jim Thome was also pretty incredible with the White Sox. He had a 1014 slug OPS in his first year. So a 4-digit OPS in 2006, and in his 237 games, because Frank ended up signing a 2-year contract with the A's, so that's why I'm kind of framing it like that. But 237 games for Thome, 77 homers, which is more than Andrew Vaughn's career. Andrew Vaughn has 72 homers in 562 games.
Yeah, but we're talking about a Hall of Famer.
No, I know, but I'm just trying to say, like, that's like a true first baseman. That is everything that we would love a first baseman to be, as 77 homers in 2 years. We can't even get a guy that hits 30. That's all I'm saying. It's just like how great Jim Thome was. I don't know. Rowan obviously getting away. Here's getting to the A's. Frankie Montas, Chris Bassett, Marcus Semien.
Yeah.
And Giovanni Gonzalez.
And Gio Gonzalez
twice.
at the bottom of this list. Which one of those was probably the least, the most short-sighted?
Giovanni Gonzalez. Because you got Nick Swisher, who absolutely sucked in his 1 year as a White Sox. Then went to the Yankees. It was great. It won a World Series, I believe, with the Yankees the next year, and was the Nick Swisher they picked up. Like, Gio Gonzalez was a up-and-coming pitcher for the White Sox rotation, and they traded him twice away, two times, and they're like, ugh, get off my team immediately. And then they got him again, and then he was terrible at the end of his career. But, yeah, that in my estimation, even though Semien has turned into an all-star, same thing with Chris Bassett, both have had much better careers than I ever thought they would be, because Semien was kind of a butcher as a White Sox shortstop second baseman. Went out there, Washington fixed his mechanics, his footwork, and he became the guy he is now. But I think that Giovanni Gonzalez was going to be the guy he was in Oakland and in Washington here with the White Sox, because they do develop pitching well, and I thought that he would have been pretty solid for the whatever year White Sox, 2008, 2009 White Sox.
Yeah, sticking with the theme of what it was in the moment versus what it is now, that's probably the correct answer in terms of the kind of prospect they were trading at the time. I mean, when the White Sox traded Chris Bassett, did anybody think that was going to be great shakes? Marcus Semien was, an infielder for a not very good White Sox team, so they traded and got an upgrade. But I believe they only had Smarja for the one season, correct, before he became a free agent?
Yes.
Right?
And the shark was pretty bad.
And he was not very good with the White Sox. And
Yes,
then
1 year.
Yeah, and then those two guys. And then we were even joking earlier about how Josh Fegley was a part of that trade and ended up having a nice year as a backup catcher the following season. But, I mean, Marcus Semien is not just an all-star. He's been one of the best players in baseball for the last 5 years. Yeah. If you're going on the one who got away definition of, you'd like to have that guy in the middle of your lineup, that's the one, because he has been nothing short of fantastic for first the A's, then the Blue Jays, now the Rangers. But yeah, if you're talking about in the moment, Gio Gonzalez was very good. And don't forget about Frankie Montas, who was not traded to the A's but ended up on the A's. He pitched in the Futures game for the White Sox. I believe he was their top pitching prospect at one point. So that's a guy they felt the need to get rid of for Todd Frazier. And Todd Frazier hit 40 home runs for the White Sox, so I guess you can't complain there. But
the last one to hit 40, right? I don't think anyone since has hit 40.
Yeah, Robert came close, but
Robert hit 35 or whatever. Montas has also just been a crazy story because it seems like he's kind of got it. He's either like unhittable or just like the worst pitcher in the world. And it's really exciting to watch because like there's moments even with Milwaukee this year where he kind of like looked like old Frankie Montas. We didn't mention Eduardo Escobar in that as well. Escobar going to the Twins for Francisco Liriano. Is there something to the Sox trading some of these guys a little bit too early, maybe not giving them time? Semien really bounced around with the Sox, playing 21 games and 64 games. And then you could see after his first full year with the A's, when he's 25 in 2016, that's when he starts to really find his footing. But even with that first year, 1.7 WAR, like is it just about time? Like should the White Sox just give, especially in this year coming forward, like any guy that has a hint of talent, just give him 155 games and go out there and learn ball?
I go back to things being a case-by-case situation, right? Some guys take a long time to get good. Sometimes it takes a guy a long time for things to click, and it takes until they get that sort of opportunity for it to happen. Other guys come right up and they're amazing, right? And across baseball, and other guys have to go back down to the minor leagues and come back up. What the White Sox have moving forward is opportunity to give. They aren't going to be in a position they were when they were trading Marcus Semien away and saying, we need to be good now, so give us all these major league, proven major league guys. We need Jeff Samardzija because we know that he's been good in the past at the major league level, and we need him now because we're trying to win this year in this way, right? The White Sox are rebuilding now. They've got a rebuild that looks like it's going to last several years. They have the ability to offer the opportunity to a guy that might need an extended runway, or a guy who might need a little bit for it to click. We're talking about, a guy who's got a lot of distaste in the fan base right now, and a guy like Miguel Vargas. Maybe they give Miguel Vargas 150 games next year, and folks are singing a different tune because he's taken advantage of that kind of opportunity and figured things out the way he needs to. Or not, but I think every guy is different, and every situation with a team in a given year is different as well.
Literally, I have a tweet from December 9th, 2014. If you would have asked me, Herb, which players do you want the White Sox to trade, Fegley and Semien would have been at the top of that list. What an idiot. Absolute dumbass guy.
The Josh Fegley one wasn't that bad. I mean,
it wasn't bad. But as Vinny said earlier, like, this was the White Sox doing that piecemeal stuff. Like, Smarja only had one more year in his contract, and that's why they give up on these younger players. Like Bassett, as a White Sox fan in 2014, I was like, I don't think he's anything. And same thing with Semien and Fegley. I was like, please leave, get out of here, and let's get good. I was shouting from the rooftops when that trade was made. I remember like the same weekend that Melky Cabrera was signed for the White Sox. Like, the White Sox are really doing it. David Robertson came.
Winter meetings, right?
I was like, yeah, here we go. And I was excited for that trade. So I can't blame the White Sox for that trade. At the time, I was hyped. But yeah, they had a problem with giving up on players too early for the gold ring, trying to chase that championship that year instead of going for a longer sustained playoff success. But I was, as a fan at that time, I was like, let's go and get it. Let's go and win it. Let's go and win the winter meetings, which they did that year. And that year in 2015, the season was terrible.
Let's go win the winter meetings.
The White Sox won the winter meetings a lot back in the Kenny days. He would trade everybody. And that's why we're having this show, because Kenny was a dealer.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention his greatest piece de resistance, Jake Berger. I don't feel like that's one that got away.
Not yet.
And might.
Well, here's my thought process. Jake Berger, right now, would he be on the next White Sox contending team?
It's a great question. I think there's a lot of people that you could ask that about.
I don't know.
Gotta be a no.
I mean, how many years does he have left?
He's got 4 years left, I think.
Does he?
Yeah, because I think
barely
last year was
played.
his first real service year. I think
I'm going to hate this answer.
I think so. I think that in 4 years, maybe, and if you have an anchor like Jake Berger,
he's got 3 years of ARB after 2025, whatever that ends up being.
Yeah, so I still think the trade could end up fine if Jake Eater is anything, but I thought they're trading Jake Berger at the highest point of his career, which I thought was last year, would be a successful thing.
Right.
Even though he followed up with a decent year this year.
Well, and that's the thing, is that he's not one who got away yet, because you don't know what he's going to be. If he can be a multi-time 30-home run hitter, then, yeah, he'll be one who got away. If he doesn't have much of a career to speak of moving forward, then maybe not. But I think there's a lot of things that you can, or there's a few other guys that you can make out of that same thing. Does Dylan Cease fall into that category? Does Garrett Crochet, if he gets traded, fall into that category? What about Michael Kopech, who's currently starring in the postseason? So those maybe would fall into the category of maybe they're ones who might have gotten away in the future. We'll see.
Kopech, I wouldn't make that argument, just because, man, I think people are ready for him to go. So I just knowing the temperature of the team, I think that can't be one that we can revisit.
But you were always like, you always knew he had.
I always knew he was going to be traded.
And also, you were bringing up stats before he got traded. Like, he's found it, he's fixed it before he got traded to the Dodgers. And I think you thought that this would be Kopech this year.
He told Vinny and the gang after the Sloppy Thurston record game that he's figuring it out. They told him what to do, and then they traded him. Oh well. All right. That's going to do it for the CHGO White Sox podcast.
Quick thing: Tigers win 1 game from the ALCS.
Wow. Was it 2-0? 3-0.
Their bullpen is insane.
Good job, Cleveland.
Who's going to start Game 4 for them?
For Detroit?
Yeah.
Any number of people. They'll just it's pitching chaos, man.
That's true.
Scooble maybe on very short rest. I don't know.
I'd save him for 5. Yeah, right?
Yeah. If you need him for 5, save him.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't need him, then you can keep him, and then you can pinch in the ALCS.
Who are the Padres throwing him 5?
Either the guy Martin Perez, who they picked up from the Rangers this year, or they could theoretically go back to Darvish, but it'll be real short rest.
I did not know they picked up Martin Perez.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for the CHGO White Sox
been pitching
podcast.
well, too, for the Padres.
I think White Sox legend. That is Vinnie Duber, our CHGO White Sox beat writer, the man in the middle, Herb Lawrence, our CHGO White Sox community leader. Gary, taking me back to my Les Grobstein days, Tatis for Shields is the modern Brock for Broglio days. And I heard
Brolio.
Brolio.
You don't pronounce that G.
It's been so long since I've heard less. Anyways, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure to subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. Thank you to Kevin Wells for producing the show. We'll see you later.